Well, hello. Fancy meeting you here. Welcome to another episode of Pause Mode, where this time around we dive into the glorious realm of Star Wars. A licensing juggernaut full of memorable games like Dark Forces, Knights of the Old Republic, The Force Unleashed, and pretty much the entire N64 catalog. Here on the Sega Cd, we get to brave the galaxies of far, far away by defeating the evil Empire with chess. Chess? One of the most classic and honored board games of all time. From being used as a test of wits, an allegory, or an exaggerated plot point, there really is no other game of skill like it. It's one of the cornerstones of the board game world. That statement is especially true in video games, as more often than not you'll find a version of it buried somewhere in a system's library, be it as a standalone game or part of a collection. So let's talk Sega Cd. Released by the Software Toolworks company, who blatantly shoehorned their name into the title and just had to have their own CD-ROM logo plastered all over the box, was a port of the PC version of the game. The player chooses to align themselves with the rebel pieces or take control of the Empire, in a rare instance to finally make Vader do your bidding. For those of you who have never played chess, a quick rundown of how this works. Each of the characters represents a different piece on the board. Each piece is assigned a rank which runs from the pawn to the rook, the knight, the bishop, and then king and queen. Each piece has a unique movement pattern, but only that single pattern. By example, the pawn can move forward one square at a time, while the knight can move in an L shape. The object of the game is to maneuver your pieces in such a way that the opponent's king cannot move without being taken. This is called being put in check, and if every possible move he makes results in his capture, you have created checkmate and won the game. As far as assignments go in this game, some of the R2-D2 units act as the rebels' lonely pawns, AT-STs act as the menacing rooks for the Empire, while Boba Fett and C-3PO take care of the bishop's job. We'll dive into these choices a bit later in the video. For now, let's talk execution and design. The game's premise isn't unique and is influenced by a much earlier release called Battle Chess. This means we have a frame of reference to compare to, and sadly, the Force isn't as strong as you'd think it would be with this one. Star Wars Chess' first glaring problem is the user interface. It is extremely slow and clunky, with many little problems spread throughout the game. There's an actual delay between you and the cursor, which makes no sense. Of all the things to not optimize, the simplest of cursor movements should have been perfect. Tied to that is the suggested move option. Pressing A will allow the game to show you a possible move, but if you decide to go against it, you don't just cancel out, you have to actually move the cursor and icon back to this original starting point. Tied to that problem is the board itself. The angle you play at creates a visual traffic jam in the center of the board. It's way too hard to tell where each piece is sitting when things are getting late in the game. While pressing the B button to see a simplified version of the game helps, it defeats the purpose of having the character versions. There's also the issue of the actual characters used in the game. They have R2-D2 as the pawn. He should have been paired up with C-3PO, and then have the real cannon fodder of the movies be used as pawns. This would have been that much more amusing, as the first steps of each game would have pretty much been the opening to Episode 4. It's also extremely easy to forget who the bishops and knights are, which results in blown strategies and unintentional piece sacrifices. From the animation standpoint, there are some funny moments and slight in-jokes, such as Yoda taking forever to get to his entrance in the opening, or how when any of the droids are defeated they get sucked up into the Jawa crawler. Those positives aside, the clips are also extremely slow to animate, are low video quality, and once you've seen them for the third or fourth time, they really don't do anything more for the viewer. It just starts bogging down the session. These can be turned off before you start the game, but then it becomes a self-defeating feature. Star Wars Chess really isn't a bad game, it's just poorly executed. So much more time should have been spent refining the animations and speeding up the piece selection. Unless you are chess or Star Wars enthusiasts, or both, this is one Sega Cd title that can stay far, far away. If you do feel the need to snag it though, expect to spend about $30 or $40 for a complete copy. Like I said though, unless you're going for a Star Wars subset or a full Sega CD set, put the money towards something more important, like groceries or a PS4 game or anything. Alright guys, that does it for this week. Your question of this episode is, what was your most beloved and or most hated licensed product you've ever played? Post below and let's get the conversation started. I will see you next week on Game Rave TV, and as always, play, laugh, love.